Roly Poly, a story written and read by Catherine Lewis. Chapter 2. Janet buys a camper van. Roly Poly was awake. He was up early, even though it was raining and cold outside. He stretched out his paws and did some cat yoga, which he never missed. It was part of his morning routine. He was a creature of habit, dedicated to his own self-care, always starting each day in the same way. Unless, of course, he was on holiday, and he took holidays every third week, which may seem like a lot, but remember, Roly was very strict about his own self-care and his meow time. Anyway, you don't need to know all that, unless you're really nosy like me. I always want to know what Roly Poly is up to. So today, even though the weather was bad, he had to go out. He knew all the clever ways to get about town without getting wet. Whenever he could, he would get a lift with Eric, the milkman, who not only gave him lifts, but would also save a lovely bottle of Jersey cream milk, the ones with the gold top. That's if you have a milkman, which not many people do these days. Eric was waiting for Roly by the street light. "Up you come, my friend. Are we going to see Mr. Brown?" Now, Mr. Brown was one of Roly Poly's regulars. He was an old man who lived at Greenacres. While Eric was delivering the milk to the back door, Roly Poly would slip in unseen and make his way to bedroom 3 on the second floor. The door was left ajar, and Mr. Brown would be dozing in the chair. He was sad and in pain. Nobody came to see Mr. Brown. His son lived in Germany, and his daughter had fallen out with him over some brass candlesticks. Don't ask. Well, if you must. Layla, his only daughter, had become convinced that the brass candlesticks were worth a small fortune. She had taken them from the family home without asking and sold them on eBay for, can you believe it, the measly sum of £42. Mr. Brown was understandably very upset about this. He could not believe his only daughter would do such a thing. He had bought those brass candlesticks on a day out to Barmouth with his first wife, Mary. Now, Mary was not Layla's mother, which may account for the fact that she didn't care about the candlesticks. In the end, Mr. Brown got so mad that he told Layla that he never wanted to see her again. But now he was old and sad, and he wished he could sort things out with her. Roly Poly jumped up onto his lap and purred. "Oh, Roly, if only I could see Layla again. I don't care about those stupid candlesticks." As he looked into Roly's loving eyes, he knew that somehow Roly Poly understood. Later that day, when Roly was on his way home, he could not stop thinking about Mr. Brown, and decided he was going to do something about it. He didn't know yet, but he always had a plan. However, right now he had an appointment to keep. Delita would be waiting for him at Posh Paws Palace. He was going for his weekly wash and blow dry. His thick, woolly, creamy coat did not stay perfect all by itself. This was perhaps his finest feature, his beautiful coat, so unlike all the other furry cats in the neighbourhood. He was no ordinary cat. Right from the beginning, he was very special, or as I like to think of him, unique. He was not only handsome and immaculate, he was filled with empathy. Let me explain to you what empathy means. Roly Poly always knew how someone was feeling. He knew when they were happy or when they were sad, when they were angry. He knew if someone was scared or lonely. And with this amazing gift, he always knew how to help. Of course, looking like a big, cuddly, soft lamb in the shape of a cat was perhaps his best way of helping. Everybody wanted to squeeze him and squish him. They would pick him up and cuddle him. He never tired of cuddles. In fact, he never seemed to get tired at all. Probably because he took such great care of himself, going on holidays, doing his cat yoga, and having his weekly visits to Posh Paul's palace. Roly was careful to always look his best. After he finished having his coat washed and coiffed, he made his way to the park. Surprisingly, by now the sun was out. It was going to be a beautiful day after all. So he went to sit on his usual bench by the lake and waited. He knew somebody would come. Of course they would. Nobody could resist the chance of a cuddle with Roly Poly. Today it was Janet, who was in a very bad mood because she hated her job. And when I say hated, I mean she despised her job, which is another way of saying she really hated her job. Working for the council. Janet had been doing the same job for 17 years. Can you believe it? Filling in forms, dealing with people who just wanted to complain about everything. The state of the bins, the state of the roads, the state of the street lighting, and so on and so on and so on. So when Janet saw him, she was startled to say the least. Like everyone who saw Roly Poly for the first time, her breath was taken away. She was sure as she came close that he would run away, but of course he did not. He just sat there purring and smiling and waiting. Janet sat down, and for a moment she thought she was in a dream. Roly Poly jumped lightly onto her lap and looked up at her with his lovely dark brown eyes. "Oh my, you're so gorgeous," she said. Janet was in tears. She was overcome with joy and felt better than she had done in years. There and then Janet made up her mind that she was not going back to work. Something had snapped. Something had changed. She realised that there was more to life than ticking boxes and going to pointless meetings. Some time later, Roly had heard that Janet had left her job at the council to go travelling in an old camper van. And as they say on those cheesy posters, she was living her best life. End of chapter 2.